The first time I walked into Jillian's new cafe, Sunshine Corner, I knew she had found something special. The place was bustling with life, sunlight streaming through large windows onto rustic wooden tables, and the air filled with the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Jillian greeted me with a radiant smile, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she showed me around. "This place is amazing, isn't it?" she beamed, gesturing proudly at the cozy interior. "Daniel really helped bring my vision to life." Daniel Cross, her business partner and investor, was a tall, well-dressed man with a confident air about him. He approached us with a warm handshake, his enthusiasm for the cafe evident in every word he spoke. As they discussed the finer details of their venture, I couldn't help but notice the easy camaraderie between them, the way they laughed at shared jokes, exchanged knowing glances. Over the next few weeks, Sunshine Corner flourished. Customers flocked in for Jillian's signature pastries and Daniel's expertly brewed coffee blends. I visited often, proud of Jillian's entrepreneurial spirit and the success she was achieving. Yet, amidst the celebration, subtle changes began to creep into our relationship. Jillian became increasingly preoccupied with the cafe, often working late into the night with Daniel. Our conversations at home shifted from shared dreams and plans to schedules and finances. I missed the intimacy we once had, the easy banter and quiet moments together. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I decided to surprise Jillian at the cafe. As I approached, I saw her through the window, deep in conversation with Daniel. They seemed engrossed in each other's company, oblivious to everything around them. A knot formed in my stomach, a flicker of unease that I couldn't shake. I stood there watching them laugh together, their closeness stirring a mix of emotions within me. Pride in Jillian's achievements, but also a growing sense of apprehension. Something didn't feel right, though I couldn't quite pinpoint what it was. When Jillian finally noticed me standing outside, her smile faltered for a moment before she hurriedly excused herself from Daniel's side. She joined me at the door, her expression caught between surprise and guilt as she greeted me with a kiss that felt more perfunctory than loving. "Hey, you're here," she said, her voice tinged with unease. "I didn't expect to see you tonight." "I wanted to surprise you," I replied, trying to mask the uncertainty in my tone. "How's everything going?" "Busy," she sighed, glancing back at the cafe where Daniel was now speaking with a customer. "Daniel's been a huge help. I don't know what I'd do without him." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to confront. I wanted to believe it was just the stress of running a new business, but a gnawing doubt lingered. As we walked home that night, silence settled between us, each step echoing with questions left unasked and answers left unsaid. The weeks that followed brought a whirlwind of change. Jillian threw herself into the cafe, leaving early in the morning and returning late at night. Our interactions became fleeting, conversations reduced to logistics and brief updates on our days. The warmth that once filled our home seemed replaced by a quiet tension, punctuated by moments of strained effort to connect. I tried to bury my suspicions, to trust in Jillian's dedication to her business and her assurances that Daniel was just a supportive partner. But doubts persisted, fueled by late-night phone calls and secretive conversations I couldn't ignore. Each time I raised concerns, Jillian reassured me, her words soothing but lacking the conviction that once reassured me. One evening, unable to shake the feeling of unease, I decided to confront Jillian directly. I arrived at the cafe earlier than usual, catching her in a rare moment of solitude before the rush of customers arrived. "I need to talk to you," I began, my voice steady despite the knot of apprehension tightening in my chest. Jillian looked up from the stack of invoices she was reviewing, her expression a mix of surprise and wariness. "Is everything okay?" she asked, setting aside the papers and giving me her full attention. "I don't know," I admitted, the words coming out in a rush. "Something feels off, Jill. You and Daniel, it's more than just business, isn't it?" Her gaze faltered, guilt flickering across her features before she composed herself. "It's not what you think," she insisted, her voice tinged with defensiveness. "Daniel is a friend, yes, but he's also invested a lot in this cafe. I can't afford to push him away." "But it's more than that, isn't it?" I pressed, frustration and hurt bubbling to the surface. "I see how you look at him, how you act around him. Don't I deserve honesty, Jill? Don't I deserve to know the truth?" Tension hung between us, the weight of unspoken truths threatening to suffocate the fragile remnants of our relationship. Jillian hesitated, her eyes avoiding mine before she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "There's something between us," she admitted, her admission hanging heavily in the air. "I didn't plan for this to happen, but Daniel, he understands me in ways you don't anymore." Her words pierced through me, each syllable a painful reminder of how far apart we had drifted. Anger surged within me, mingling with a profound sense of betrayal. "So, what now?" I demanded, my voice edged with bitterness. "Are you leaving me for him?" Jillian's expression softened, regret etched in the lines of her face. "I don't know," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "I don't know what I want anymore." Silence settled between us, thick and suffocating. I turned away, unable to bear the sight of the woman I loved, unsure if she still loved me back. The cafe buzzed with activity around us, oblivious to the unraveling of our once promising future. As I walked out into the cool night air, I felt a deep ache in my chest, a realization that the life I knew was slipping away, replaced by uncertainty and heartache. Days turned into weeks, and the revelation of Jillian's affair with Daniel gnawed at me incessantly. I wrestled with conflicting emotions, anger, hurt, and a profound sense of loss. Our home, once filled with laughter and shared dreams, now echoed with the hollow silence of two people drifting apart. I immersed myself in work, seeking solace in the familiar routine of my job. Yet, even amidst the distractions, thoughts of Jillian and Daniel haunted me. I couldn't escape the images of them together, their laughter, their closeness, a constant reminder of the betrayal that tore through the fabric of our marriage. Friends noticed the change in me, the heaviness that seemed to weigh down every conversation. They offered words of comfort and advice, urging me to confront Jillian or consider counseling. But the mere thought of confronting her again filled me with a mixture of dread and resignation. I wasn't ready to face the truth, that the woman I loved had found solace and companionship elsewhere. One evening, as I sat alone in our living room, the reality of our situation hit me with a crushing force. I had become a stranger in my own home, navigating the empty spaces between us with a numbness that bordered on apathy. The photographs on the walls, once a testament to our happiness, now mocked me with their frozen smiles and distant memories. Unable to sleep, I found myself scrolling through old messages on my phone, the innocent exchanges, the promises of forever. Tears blurred my vision as I relived moments that now felt like distant echoes of a life I could no longer recognize. In the midst of my turmoil, a sense of clarity began to emerge. A realization that I couldn't continue living in limbo, waiting for Jillian to make a choice that seemed increasingly inevitable. The next morning, with a heavy heart and trembling hands, I made a decision that would change the course of my life. I called Jillian at the cafe, my voice steady despite the storm raging within me. "We need to talk," I said, my words echoing with a finality that neither of us could ignore. She arrived home later that evening, her expression a mix of apprehension and resignation. We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity, the weight of unspoken words hanging between us like a shroud. "I can't do this anymore, Jill," I finally whispered, the words catching in my throat. "I can't pretend that everything is okay when it's not." Her eyes filled with tears, a silent acknowledgement of the pain we both felt. "I'm sorry," she choked out, her voice raw with emotion. "I never meant to hurt you." "I know," I replied, my voice breaking despite my efforts to remain composed. "But we can't go on like this. Something has to change." And with those words, I made a choice, to confront the reality of our shattered marriage, to embrace the uncertainty that lay ahead, and to find a way forward, no matter how daunting the journey might be. The days that followed my decision to confront Jillian were filled with a whirlwind of emotions and practical considerations. We agreed to take some time apart, each finding temporary accommodations while we figured out our next steps. Alone in my new apartment, the silence was both a relief and a torment. The absence of Jillian's presence left a void I struggled to fill, yet it also provided a necessary distance to process the upheaval in my life. Friends reached out, offering support and encouragement. They urged me to focus on self-care, to rediscover hobbies and interests that had fallen by the wayside during my marriage. Slowly, I began to reclaim aspects of myself that had been overshadowed by the turmoil of recent months. Yet despite my efforts to move forward, Thoughts of Jillian and Daniel continued to haunt me. I wrestled with questions of betrayal and forgiveness, wondering if our marriage could ever be repaired or if it was irretrievably broken. One afternoon, as I walked through the city park, I spotted a familiar figure sitting alone on a bench. It was Jillian, her expression a mixture of weariness and sadness. I hesitated, unsure whether to approach her or retreat, but a sense of longing propelled me forward. "Jill," I called out softly, my voice breaking the silence that hung between us. She looked up, surprise flashing across her features before she composed herself. "Hi," she replied tentatively, her eyes avoiding mine. I've been thinking," I began, the words stumbling out as I struggled to articulate the turmoil in my heart. "About us, about everything." Jillian nodded, her gaze flickering with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "I have too," she admitted quietly. "I never wanted things to end like this." I took a seat beside her, the distance between us filled with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I confessed, my voice raw with honesty. "But I also don't know if I can let go of what we had." Tears welled in Jillian's eyes, her hands trembling as she reached out to touch mine. "I understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I still love you, despite everything." Her words struck a chord deep within me, stirring memories of a love that had once felt unshakable. We sat in silence for a long while, the weight of our shared history hanging between us like a fragile thread. "I don't know what the future holds," I finally said, breaking the silence that had settled over us. "But I think we owe it to ourselves to try to figure it out." Jillian nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I want that too," she replied softly. "Whatever happens, I want us to find a way back to each other." And in that moment, amidst the uncertainty and the pain, a glimmer of hope flickered, a fragile beacon guiding us towards the possibility of reconciliation and healing. The weeks that followed our tentative reconciliation were a delicate dance of hope and uncertainty. Jillian and I navigated our newfound closeness cautiously, tiptoeing around the jagged edges of our fractured trust. We attended counseling sessions together, unpacking years of misunderstandings and hurts in the presence of a neutral observer who guided us through the labyrinth of our emotions. At home, we established new routines, shared dinners that felt both familiar and foreign, quiet evenings spent in companionable silence as we struggled to rebuild what had been broken. The wounds of betrayal still lingered, a constant reminder of the fragility of our renewed bond. Daniel's presence remained a lingering shadow in our lives. Jillian spoke less of him now, focusing instead on the efforts to salvage our marriage. Yet I couldn't shake the gnawing suspicion that she still harbored feelings for him, despite her assurances to the contrary. One evening, as we sat in the dim glow of our living room, the silence between us thick with unspoken fears, I broached the topic that had been weighing on my mind. "Jill," I began tentatively, my voice wavering with uncertainty, "do you still think about him?" Her eyes flickered with surprise before she met my gaze, searching for the right words. I try not to," she admitted softly, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. "But it's hard, especially when we're trying to move forward." "I understand," I replied, though the ache in my chest betrayed the turmoil within me. "But I need to know, Jill. Are you committed to making this work, to letting go of him completely?" Tears welled in her eyes, her shoulders slumping with the weight of my question. "I want to be," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I want us to have a future together, but I'm still struggling to forgive myself." I reached out to touch her hand, a gesture of reassurance that felt inadequate in the face of our tangled emotions. "We both have things to forgive," I said gently. "But we can't move forward if we're holding on to the past." Jillian nodded, her grip tightening around mine as if seeking solace in our shared uncertainty. "I'm willing to try," she promised quietly, "for us." And in that moment, as we faced the shadows of our shared history and the uncertain road ahead, I found a flicker of hope, a fragile belief that love, however scarred and fragile, could still find a way to heal and endure. As weeks turned into months, Jillian and I embarked on a journey of healing and rebuilding. Our counseling sessions became a lifeline, providing a safe space to confront our fears and vulnerabilities. We delved deeper into the roots of our relationship, unraveling the tangled threads of resentment and hurt that had woven themselves into the fabric of our marriage. Communication became our cornerstone. We learned to articulate our needs and fears with newfound honesty, navigating the turbulent waters of forgiveness and reconciliation. There were setbacks along the way, moments of doubt and lingering mistrust, but we clung to the belief that our love was worth fighting for. Outside the walls of therapy, we made conscious efforts to reconnect. Date nights became a regular occurrence, moments carved out from our busy schedules to rediscover the joy and laughter that had once defined us. We explored new hobbies together, finding solace in shared experiences that strengthened our bond. Yet the specter of Daniel lingered in the periphery of our lives, a constant reminder of the betrayal that had nearly torn us apart. Jillian spoke less of him now, her focus shifting towards our future together, but I couldn't shake the fear that history would repeat itself. One evening, over dinner at a quaint bistro downtown, the topic resurfaced, a shadow cast over our tentative peace. "Do you ever think about him?" I asked quietly, my gaze fixed on Jillian's downcast eyes. She hesitated, her fork pausing midway to her mouth. "Sometimes," she admitted softly, her voice tinged with remorse. "But not in the way I used to. I've realized how much I risked losing us." I nodded, though the knot of unease in my stomach tightened. "I want to believe you," I confessed, the words heavy with unspoken doubt. "But it's hard, Jill. Trust doesn't come easily after everything we've been through." Tears welled in her eyes, a mirror of my own uncertainty. "I know," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the din of the restaurant. "I'm trying every day to earn back your trust." Silence settled between us, the weight of our shared struggles hanging heavy in the air. I reached across the table to touch her hand, a silent gesture of reassurance and solidarity. "We'll get through this," I said softly, my voice a thread of hope amidst the uncertainty. "Together." And as we sat there, surrounded by the ebb and flow of diners and waitstaff, I clung to the fragile belief that love, tested and scarred though it may be, could still find its way back to wholeness. The turning point in our journey came during a weekend getaway to a secluded cabin in the woods. We sought refuge from the noise of our daily lives, hoping that the tranquil surroundings would provide clarity and perspective. As we settled into the cozy cabin, surrounded by towering pines and the soothing melody of a nearby stream, a sense of peace settled over us. We spent hours exploring the wilderness together, rediscovering the simple joy of being in each other's company without the distractions of work and everyday stress. One evening, as we sat by the crackling fire, Jillian opened up in a way she hadn't before. She spoke of her regrets and the pain she had caused, her voice raw with emotion. "I never meant to hurt you," she admitted, tears glistening in the firelight. "I was lost and confused, and I made a terrible mistake." I listened, my own heart heavy with the weight of our shared struggles. "I know," I replied softly, reaching out to take her hand in mine. "But we're here now, together. That's what matters." We talked late into the night, sharing fears and hopes for our future. Jillian spoke of her commitment to our marriage, her determination to rebuild what had been broken. "I want us to have a second chance," she said earnestly, her eyes searching mine for reassurance. I nodded, the fire casting flickering shadows across our faces. "I want that too," I confessed, my voice a whisper in the stillness of the cabin. "But we have to learn from the past, Jill. We can't ignore what happened." She nodded solemnly, her fingers tracing patterns on my palm. "I know," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." And in that quiet moment, amidst the serenity of the forest and the warmth of the fire, I felt a glimmer of hope, a renewed belief that our love, though scarred and fragile, could endure. As we drifted off to sleep that night, wrapped in each other's arms, I clung to the fragile promise of a future where forgiveness and healing were not just dreams, but possibilities within our grasp. The months that followed our retreat to the cabin brought a gradual sense of stability back into our lives. Jillian and I continued our counseling sessions, delving deeper into the complexities of our relationship and the wounds that still needed healing. We learned to communicate more openly, to confront uncomfortable truths with a newfound courage, born from our shared commitment to rebuild. Slowly but surely, trust began to re-emerge between us. Jillian made conscious efforts to be more transparent about her interactions and commitments, reassuring me of her dedication to our marriage. I, in turn, learned to let go of lingering doubts, choosing to focus on the present rather than dwell on past betrayals. Outside the confines of therapy, we embraced opportunities for growth and renewal. We took weekend trips to explore new places, creating memories that felt untainted by the shadows of our tumultuous past. Jillian poured her creativity into revitalizing Sunshine Corner, infusing the cafe with fresh ideas and a renewed sense of purpose. Yet challenges continued to test the fragile foundation of our reconciliation. There were moments of insecurity and fear, triggered by reminders of Daniel or unexpected setbacks in our journey towards rebuilding trust. Each time we leaned on the tools and strategies our counselor had taught us, finding solace in the resilience of our commitment to each other. One evening, as we sat on the porch of our home, sipping tea and watching the sun set in a blaze of colors, Jillian turned to me with a contemplative expression. "Do you think we'll ever fully recover from this?" she asked softly, her gaze searching mine for reassurance. I considered her question carefully, the weight of our shared history palpable in the fading light. "I think we already are," I replied honestly, reaching for her hand. "It's not about erasing the past, but learning from it and growing stronger together." She smiled, a small but genuine expression of gratitude. "I'm grateful for this second chance," she admitted, her voice filled with emotion. "For us." And as we sat there, enveloped in the peace of the evening and the warmth of our renewed connection, I felt a profound sense of gratitude, a recognition of how far we had come, and a quiet hope for the future we were building, one fragile step at a time. The weeks turned into a routine of stability and hope as Jillian and I continued to navigate the delicate balance of our renewed marriage. Our efforts in counseling bore fruit, fostering deeper understanding and empathy between us. We learned to anticipate each other's needs, to communicate more openly, and to cherish the moments of connection that strengthened our bond. Despite our progress, shadows of doubt occasionally crept into our lives. I found myself questioning Jillian's interactions at Sunshine Corner, wondering if Daniel still lingered in the periphery of her thoughts. Each time she reassured me with patience and understanding, her words a balm to my insecurities. One afternoon while visiting the cafe, I noticed Daniel seated at a corner table, deep in conversation with Jillian. My heart clenched with a mixture of apprehension and anger as I watched them, their heads close together in earnest discussion. I struggled to quell the rising tide of jealousy and doubt that threatened to undo the fragile peace we had worked so hard to achieve. Later that evening, as we sat in the quiet of our living room, I broached the subject that had been gnawing at me since our encounter at the cafe. "Jill," I began tentatively, my voice tinged with uncertainty, "I saw you with Daniel today." Her expression softened, a flicker of sadness crossing her features. "I'm sorry," she murmured, her eyes avoiding mine. "He stopped by to discuss some business matters and things got personal." I fought to keep my frustration in check, the echoes of past betrayals threatening to drown out reason. "How am I supposed to trust this?" I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. "After everything we've been through?" Jillian reached out to touch my arm, her touch gentle but firm. "I understand why you're upset," she admitted quietly. "But you have to trust me when I say that Daniel is just a business partner now, nothing more." I searched her eyes for the truth, grappling with the conflicting emotions that churned within me. "I want to believe you," I confessed, my voice heavy with resignation. "But it's hard, Jill. It's so hard." Tears welled in her eyes, a mirror of my own turmoil. "I don't know what else to say," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion, "except that I love you, and I'm committed to making this work." Silence settled between us, the weight of our unspoken fears hanging heavy in the air. I took her hand in mine, a silent gesture of solidarity amidst the uncertainty that threatened to unravel our fragile progress. "We'll figure this out," I said softly, my voice a thread of determination in the quiet of our shared space. "Together." And as we sat there, enveloped in the stillness of the night and the tentative hope of our renewed commitment, I clung to the belief that love, though tested and scarred, could still find its way back to trust and healing. I couldn't shake the image of Jillian and Daniel together at Sunshine Corner. Despite her assurances, doubts continued to gnaw at me, undermining the fragile trust we had painstakingly rebuilt. The tension between us became palpable, hanging in the air like an unspoken truth neither of us dared to confront. Days turned into weeks as we navigated this new chapter of uncertainty in our marriage. We attended counseling sessions with renewed fervor, each session a battleground where we fought to reconcile our conflicting emotions and fears. Our counselor provided guidance and support, urging us to confront the root causes of our insecurities with honesty and compassion. Outside of therapy, we clung to routines that had once brought us solace. Yet, there was an undercurrent of unease in our interactions, a hesitation to fully let go of the past. I found myself withdrawing into silence, grappling with the fear that history would repeat itself despite our best efforts to move forward. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table in strained silence, Jillian placed her fork down with a sigh. "I can feel you pulling away," she said softly, her eyes searching mine for understanding. "I don't know how to fix this." I swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling heavily in my chest. "I'm trying," I replied hoarsely, my voice thick with emotion. "But every time I see you with him," Jillian's expression softened, her gaze filled with regret. "I know," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "I've tried to keep things professional, but what?" I pressed, the frustration bubbling to the surface despite my efforts to remain composed. She hesitated, her fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth. "I can't deny that there's a connection," she admitted quietly. "But it's nothing compared to what I feel for you. I thought you understood that." Tears welled in my eyes, a mixture of hurt and anger swirling within me. "I want to believe you," I whispered, the words a plea for reassurance. "But I don't know how." Jillian reached across the table to touch my hand, her touch tentative but steadfast. "I'm here," she said softly, her voice filled with a quiet determination. "I'm not going anywhere no matter how hard this gets." And in that moment, as we sat in the flickering light of our dining room, I realized that rebuilding trust wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about choosing to believe in the possibility of redemption and renewal, even when the path ahead seemed uncertain and steep. The tension between Jillian and me continued to linger like an uninvited guest in our home. Despite our efforts in therapy and our shared desire to mend our fractured relationship, the specter of Daniel loomed large, a constant reminder of the betrayal that had threatened to tear us apart. We both tried to move forward, clinging to the semblance of normalcy in our daily routines. Jillian threw herself into revitalizing Sunshine Corner, pouring her creativity into every aspect of the cafe's operations. She seemed determined to prove her commitment not just to our marriage, but also to her newfound independence as a business owner. Yet, I struggled to shake off the unease that settled like a heavy cloak over my shoulders whenever Daniel's name came up in conversation, or when I noticed his presence at the cafe during my occasional visits. Each time, I felt a pang of jealousy and distrust, emotions that I fought to suppress for the sake of our fragile peace. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Jillian turned to me with a troubled expression. "I can see how hard this is for you," she began softly, her voice tinged with sadness. "I want to make things right, but I don't know how." I sighed, the weight of our shared struggle bearing down on me. "I don't either," I admitted, my voice rough with emotion. "I want to trust you, Jill. I want to believe that you've chosen us." She reached out to take my hand, her touch gentle yet firm. "I have," she insisted earnestly, her eyes searching mine for understanding. "I've never stopped loving you, despite everything." I nodded slowly, my heart heavy with conflicting emotions. "I know," I murmured, my voice barely audible in the quiet of the evening. "But I can't shake the feeling that we're stuck in this cycle of doubt and mistrust." Jillian's expression softened, her gaze filled with empathy. "Maybe we need to confront this head-on," she suggested quietly, "to acknowledge our fears and find a way to move past them together." I considered her words, the flickering porch light casting shadows across our faces. "I want that too," I admitted, a glimmer of hope stirring within me. "I just don't know where to begin." "We start by being honest with each other," Jillian replied softly, her voice unwavering. "And by choosing every day to rebuild what we almost lost." And as we sat there, enveloped in the fading light of the day and the tentative promise of our renewed commitment, I felt a flicker of optimism, a belief that, despite the challenges ahead, Our love could still find a way to transcend the shadows of our past. As weeks turned into months, Jillian and I embarked on a journey of introspection and resilience. Our commitment to healing our marriage grew stronger with each passing day, yet the shadows of doubt still loomed over us, threatening to unravel the progress we had made. We continued our counseling sessions diligently, confronting uncomfortable truths and delving deeper into the roots of our insecurities. Our therapist guided us through exercises designed to foster empathy and understanding, urging us to communicate with vulnerability and honesty. Outside of therapy, we sought solace in shared experiences that reinforced our bond. We took long walks in the park, hand in hand, finding comfort in the quiet moments of companionship. Jillian's dedication to Sunshine Corner never waned. If anything, her passion for the cafe seemed to grow stronger, a testament to her resilience and determination to carve out a future for herself beyond past mistakes. Yet the specter of Daniel persisted in my thoughts, a constant reminder of the fragility of trust. I struggled to reconcile the image of Jillian with her business partner, their interactions clouded by my lingering doubts. Each time I visited the cafe, I observed their exchanges with a mix of curiosity and unease, my heart heavy with the fear of history repeating itself. One evening, after a particularly challenging therapy session, Jillian and I sat in the quiet of our living room, the weight of our unspoken fears hanging heavy in the air. "I don't know how to make this easier for you," she confessed softly, her eyes brimming with tears. "I hate that my mistakes still haunt us." I reached out to touch her hand, a gesture of reassurance and solidarity. "It's not just about you," I admitted, my voice tinged with regret. "I want to move forward, but I don't know how to let go of the past." Jillian nodded, her fingers intertwining with mine. "Maybe we need to confront this head-on," she suggested tentatively, her gaze searching mine for agreement. "To address the elephant in the room and find a way to rebuild our trust." I took a deep breath, the weight of her words settling over me like a heavy blanket. "I want that too," I murmured, my voice a whisper in the stillness of the room. "But I'm scared." "We're in this together," Jillian reminded me gently, her touch a lifeline in the darkness of my uncertainty. "We've come this far, and we can't give up now." And as we sat there, the silence punctuated only by the steady rhythm of our breathing, I felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that, with patience and perseverance, we could navigate the complexities of forgiveness and redemption and emerge stronger on the other side. The turning point came unexpectedly on a crisp autumn afternoon. Jillian and I had planned a weekend getaway to a small cabin nestled in the woods, a retreat we hoped would provide us with the clarity and peace we desperately needed. As we drove through winding roads lined with vibrant foliage, a sense of anticipation mingled with apprehension. The cabin, secluded and serene, stood as a beacon of hope amidst the uncertainty that had clouded our marriage. We unpacked in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy between us. That evening, as we sat on the porch overlooking a tranquil lake shimmering under the fading light, Jillian broke the silence with a sigh. "I don't want to lose us," she admitted softly, her eyes fixed on the horizon painted in hues of orange and gold. I turned to her, the lines of worry etched into my brow softening at the vulnerability in her voice. "Neither do I," I replied earnestly, my own fears laid bare. "But sometimes it feels like we're stuck in a cycle we can't break." Jillian nodded, her gaze returning to the serene landscape before us. "I've been thinking a lot about Daniel," she confessed hesitantly, her voice tinged with regret. "About how my choices hurt you." I listened, the ache in my chest intensifying with the admission. "It's hard not to think about it," I admitted quietly, my gaze fixed on the rippling water below. "But I want to find a way forward." "We have to confront the past if we want a future," Jillian murmured, her words carrying a weight of determination. "I don't want to lose what we've fought so hard to rebuild." The evening deepened into night as we talked, our voices a mix of regret, longing, and hope. We shared memories of better times, moments that reminded us of the love that had once bound us together. In the quiet of the cabin, amidst the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant call of a night owl, we found a fragile peace, a shared understanding that healing would take time and effort, but that we were committed to the journey together. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden hue over the landscape, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Jillian and I stood side by side, ready to face the challenges ahead with courage and resilience. The cabin, once a refuge from our uncertainties, had become a symbol of hope, a testament to the strength of our love and our unwavering determination to forge a future united once more. The weekend retreat had provided a much-needed respite, but as we returned to the rhythm of everyday life, the challenges of rebuilding our marriage persisted. Jillian threw herself into Sunshine Corner with renewed vigor, her passion for the cafe serving as both a distraction and a source of fulfillment. I supported her endeavors wholeheartedly, yet the specter of Daniel continued to haunt the periphery of our relationship. One evening, while Jillian worked late at the cafe, I found myself lost in thought at home. The quiet of the house amplified my unease, memories of past betrayals playing on a loop in my mind. I paced the living room, grappling with the fear that history would repeat itself despite our best efforts to move forward. When Jillian finally returned, exhaustion etched into the lines of her face, I struggled to maintain a facade of composure. "How was your day?" I asked, my voice tinged with forced nonchalance. She hesitated, sensing the tension that hung heavy in the air. "Busy," she replied vaguely, her eyes avoiding mine. We had a lot going on. I clenched my fists, the urge to confront her bubbling beneath the surface. "Was Daniel there again?" I blurted out, unable to contain the question that had been gnawing at me all day. Jillian's expression faltered, a flicker of guilt crossing her features. "Yes," she admitted reluctantly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it was strictly business, I promise." I struggled to rein in my emotions, the knot in my stomach tightening with each passing moment. "How can I trust that?" I demanded, the words laced with accusation. "After everything we've been through?" Tears welled in Jillian's eyes, her own frustration mingling with remorse. "I don't know what else to say," she confessed, her voice trembling with emotion, "except that I love you, and I'm trying." I paced the room, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the silence that followed. "I want to believe you," I whispered finally, the admission a reluctant surrender to the uncertainty that plagued us. "But it's so hard." Jillian crossed the room to stand before me, her presence a mix of vulnerability and determination. "I won't give up on us," she vowed quietly, her hand reaching out to touch mine. "I won't let my mistakes destroy what we've fought so hard to rebuild." I met her gaze, the conflict within me mirrored in the depths of her eyes. "I don't want to lose you," I confessed, my voice raw with emotion, "but I need to know that you're with me, completely." Her fingers intertwined with mine, a silent promise of solidarity amidst the turmoil that threatened to engulf us. "I am," she whispered, her voice filled with a quiet resolve. "I always will be." And as we stood there, our hands clasped together in silent acknowledgement of the challenges ahead, I felt a glimmer of hope, a fragile belief that with patience and perseverance, we could navigate the uncertainties that lay before us and emerge stronger together. The weeks that followed brought a fragile peace to our home. Jillian and I navigated the delicate balance between trust and uncertainty, each day a testament to our commitment to rebuilding what had nearly been lost. Therapy sessions became a cornerstone of our routine, providing a safe space to address lingering doubts and fears. At Sunshine Corner, Jillian's dedication shone brighter than ever. She poured her heart into every aspect of the cafe's operations, her creativity and passion evident in the smiles of satisfied customers and the bustling atmosphere that filled the space. I found solace in supporting her from the sidelines, taking pride in her achievements, while silently battling the residual doubts that still lingered. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, a sense of calm settled over us like a comforting blanket. "I'm proud of you," I murmured, breaking the silence that had enveloped us. Jillian turned to me, her eyes softening with gratitude. "Thank you," she replied sincerely, her voice tinged with relief, "for standing by me, even when it was hard." I reached for her hand, a gesture of reassurance and love. "We've come a long way," I acknowledged quietly, my gaze meeting hers with a mix of affection and determination. "And I believe in us." Her smile was radiant, a reflection of the hope that had begun to bloom within us both. "I do too," she affirmed, her voice filled with certainty. "We've faced our demons and we're still standing." As the evening wore on, we talked about our dreams for the future, of growing old together, of finding new adventures, of cherishing each moment as it came. The shadows of doubt no longer loomed as large, replaced instead by a newfound sense of resilience and trust. In the quiet of that moment, Amidst the gentle rustling of leaves and the soft glow of the porch light, I knew that we had weathered the storm and emerged stronger on the other side. Our journey was far from over, but with each step forward, we found ourselves more deeply rooted in the love that had guided us through the darkest of times. And as we held each other close, our hearts beating in sync with the rhythm of the night, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for second chances, for forgiveness, and for the unwavering bond that had proven stronger than any obstacle life had thrown our way.